This is Matt Rosen, and this is The Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of The Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower our listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Grit Mindset. I'm your host, Matt Rosen. Today, I've got with me a friend and a mentor. His name's Ray Larson. He is an entrepreneur and investor here in Dallas. Ray, welcome to the show today.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. So why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about what you do these days and maybe how you got here as being an entrepreneur.
Oh, sure. So what I do now is, you mentioned I'm an investor. And another way of kind of describing that is I run a small family office. So what that means is I had a business exit 11 years ago. And with the proceeds, rather than hire a wealth manager or put money into the stock market, I started to learn a bit about alternative investments and specifically private investments. So over a period of 11 years, I've built a portfolio of mostly private investments. And therefore, I'm an investor. That's what I do. That's kind of my day job. And like I said, I've been doing that for 11 years. The other thing that I do is I'm a part of a group there's 17 of us. It's called Claris Investors. And we meet quarterly, and it's a group of folks that have had business exits and folks that are interested in learning how to build a portfolio of private investments. And what's cool about it is we do it together. So we meet quarterly. We have the investment sponsors come in. The investment sponsors kind of pitch their business to us. They pitch specific investment opportunities. And then we decide individually whether or not we want to invest. And the cool thing about it, well, there's a couple of cool things about it. One of them is having other smart people in the room with you that can analyze a deal, analyze a firm, and offer some really good input. The other thing is because, I can invest dollars into an entity, but if 6 or 7 or 10 or 12 of us invest into a particular investment opportunity, we end up with better deal terms. So, it's kind of a win all around. The other thing too, which is really cool, is you get to meet some really cool people like yours truly as part of the group. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the invite into that, and hopefully we'll have a couple of the group members on the Grit Mindset, because I think everybody's, gotten to a good place over time, but the path there isn't always so easy. So what would be great is to share with our listeners kind of the path through building your company, being an entrepreneur, and some of the challenges you had to overcome to be where you are today.
Okay. Well, like most people, you said some of the challenges. It's a lot of challenges.
Lots of
right?
challenges.
It's lots of challenges.
Fair.
It's just like, which ones do you want to talk about, right? So we'll pick a couple. I would say, so maybe I'll start with one that was probably the most challenging, difficult to pull off, required, competence, required luck, required a whole bunch of things. So I'd started a print management company that evolved into a third-party publishing agency. We may or may not get into that piece. We'll see. But one of the publications that we did, and we started the business in 1993 after I'd been with a big national global printing company for 11 years. We started our business, Prism, P-R-I-S-M, in, not prison.
Not prison.
Not Prism, in 93. As a print broker, evolved into a third-party publishing agency. But one of the more interesting pieces that we did were provider directories for health insurance companies.
Okay, so that's where you get a book, find a doctor that's covered by your insurance.
Yeah. And, it's a pretty straightforward kind of piece, but it's super important because The doctors and hospitals that are in those networks that are related to the health insurance plans, if you or I, as a consumer, step outside of the network, it ends up costing us a lot of money. So health insurance are very keen to publish, where they were publishing millions of these directories for many decades. And they would give them to their employer group customers, who would give them to their employees and say, stay in network or it's going to be a lot of money.
Right.
Okay. So we published millions of those books, our tiny little firm. We published probably 6 million books a year, something like that. So at the time, that probably translated to about $6 million in revenue, okay? And we were doing some other things too, but that was a big part of our business. So our largest client in the late 90s comes to us and says, hey, our largest client, so this is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Virginia, comes to us and says, our largest client, the state, wants a search engine. Could you do a search engine for us?
So you've been printing this before the dawn of the internet, for those that are listening and don't even remember what a telephone book or directory was.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And we were dealing, like, they would provide us multiple data sets, and the data wasn't clean. And we really knew their data at least as well as they did, probably better. And then what we were doing at that time is massaging it, cleaning it, and then putting it to a printed bound book. So what they were asking us to do is do all those same things, but create a search engine on the back end, and that's what we did. Okay, so we do that for a client. We used to update that database quarterly. That'll give you an idea of how ancient that process was and how rudimentary it was when it started. Okay, so fast forward a couple of years. We don't win many deals from that point forward, because as that pivot began to happen from a printed piece to a search engine, internal IT at the health insurance companies won all the deals. So we didn't win anything. We won maybe one or two deals.
They were just doing it themselves.
They were doing it themselves. But when the sophistication of the search outgrew internal IT skills, that's when they started to really look outside. And that's when we really had a real big uptick in our business. But let me just go back a little bit, because this is kind of interesting. So there was a period of about 3 or 4 years where I was losing $1 of print and only getting a nickel back in search.
Wow.
And eventually we would lose all of that print, all $6 million.
So your entire business model
going away.
Yeah.
It's going away. Yeah. So as soon as health insurance companies were forced by their employer groups to provide more sophisticated tools because of high deductible plans that they began to offer employers, that's when we started winning deals. So we won, like I said, we had 1 or 2 for 5 years, we'll say. And when we sold the business in 2014, we had 45 of the 200 health insurance companies using our search engine platform.
That's amazing.
So and that pivot was so hard. It was so hard.
Yeah. What did you have to go through? Did you even know what was next? Because I think, heck, many people listening today, I mean, there's artificial intelligence is what the internet was 25 years ago, where business models are going to be totally disrupted. So I think there's something that can be learned from you here. Like, what was the thought process that you went through, that your team went through, to figure out, like, what are we going to do next?
Well, we certainly got a nice tip from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Virginia when they came to us, and we knew it was going in that direction.
Right.
We were just trying to figure out, how to stay with it. And whenever I think of that, I think of Steve Ballmer telling the story about, can we ride the bear, the IBM bear? So we're just trying, can we ride this out and get to the other side to where, we have a play in here, and we were able to do it. But at the same time, we developed a third-party publishing agency. So, and we built that business. At one point we had 26 employees just on that side. That business got it up to $5 million in revenue. And I was using the profits of that to fund the losses of the pivot to provider search.
Right.
And I mean, talk about turnover. Oh my God, it was so difficult on people and on staff. As a matter of fact, once we started to get kind of a little groove going, maybe 2010-ish, somewhere in that time frame, I realized that I needed to convert our little IT shop that we had. We had 8 resources at the time. When I sold the business, we had like 35 people in our tech shop.
Wow.
But the 8 were all open source folks. And that wasn't going to provide us the stability we needed. So I brought in a gentleman who ended up doing a great job for us as a CTO. And his charter was to convert to .NET. The first day he's hired, our largest client by far, Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, we're on a call and they're telling us they're going to fire us.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
And what percentage of your business was that?
Of the search business, it was probably 60%.
Oh, wow. Oh.
It's okay.
Dead in the water.
Something
they go
like
away.
that. So long story short, like we would typically do, we'd listen to the client, we'd get in there, get our hands dirty, solve the problem, and they end up being happy. And that happened. But right after that meeting, I pulled our CTO aside and I said, listen, don't worry. Because he had just come on board. He thought he was going to get laid off. I said, listen, those guys that you're going to convert, we're going to convert to .NET, that group, I'll let them go. I'm not letting you go. We're going to do this. And like I said, we were able to solve the client problem, and he did make the conversion. We converted to .NET. He built a team of like 35 people, and it worked out beautifully. So, yeah.
So there's some definite challenges you had to overcome from the entire industry shifting to potentially losing a big client. What maybe preceding that got you down the path of becoming an entrepreneur? Did you know that you wanted to run your own show someday? Did you get tired of working for big companies? What led you down that path?
Yeah. So I would say it's a combination of things. And so it's probably my ego and bumping up against 50-year-olds when you're 30. And that combination of those two things, I ended up getting fired. Okay, so took a promotion to the large printing company that I worked for 11 years. We had a 6-month-old girl. You know, my wife and I were just starting out in our marriage. And we moved to Minneapolis, of all places. And my wife is from Texas. And so you can imagine how popular that decision was.
Yeah, especially when it's 0 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
30 below wind chill.
Oh, and you're indoors so much of the year and you get cabin fever. Yeah, it's tough. It's really difficult. I can't overstate
you gotta have a lot of grit to live up there.
Yeah, you do. So I was doing my job as a sales manager, but also I had delusions of grandeur probably. And I was really trying to do something significant within our business. I knew our business needed to pivot and become more of a publishing company than a print company, or they were not long for this world. And as it turns out, the story, that they weren't long for the world. But I dished up 2 opportunities for our company. We're a $100 million division of a $1.5 billion company. I dished up to our CEO 2 companies to acquire that could help us make that pivot. I wrote the business plan. He invited me, nobody else, and I'm way down in middle management. He invited me to the corporate office in Toronto. The company has they're in the tallest building, downtown Toronto. You know, portraits of every CEO from the 1800s is in the boardroom. He reads my business plan to the board and got approval to invest $60 million into one of 2 companies. Long story short, we invest in none of the companies. I go back to my old job. My boss immediately cuts my pay in half and I quit.
Wow.
And we're living in Minnesota. My wife's pregnant with our 2nd kid. I drive back to Dallas. I'm living with my in-laws. My wife and young daughter are living in Minnesota. And I started a print brokerage business. And over time, Susie came down. We all lived with our in-laws. Then we went into an apartment. Then our house sold in Minneapolis, and we finally made it. We finally landed back in Dallas, and I could concentrate on the business. And that was another that's how I got into the business.
Yeah.
So
That's funny because I started my career in the printing business a little bit later than you were there. I think we worked for competitors, but
we did.
Very quickly realized that the print business was quickly going away to digital software and tools. And I spent a year and it was like, it's time to go do something else. So, so you started off living with your in-laws, with your folks. What was some of the early days like getting that off the ground? Was it exciting, scary, probably all at the same time?
All of that.
Yeah.
But when you're in that mode, I don't know if this is universal for most people, but you're not even thinking about anything other than what's right directly in front of you. You just put one step in front of the other, try to win a client, try to bring on a decent employee, you try to solve a problem. You are just so tactical that you don't really have time for, much else. A lot of higher level thinking. It's just very tactical until you can get some traction. So, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think we've heard that theme across a couple of different folks that have been on the Grit Mindset talking about it's get to the next day, get to the next thing. And it's great to think strategically and what's the next 5-10 years look like. But sometimes it's like, what do I have to do today to get through the day?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I definitely experienced that for many, many years. Many years. Only when we got some traction on that third-party publishing agency, we got to where I could be more strategic. And then once the software business really kicked in, we were able to be more strategic. But it was a long way. It took 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah, so you're on the Grit Mindset. So I ask every guest, what does grit mean to you personally, professionally?
Well, one of the things, so I was thinking about that. I used to call our business scrappy. I think it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Scrappy,
I like that word.
Gritty. Yeah, grit. And I think it has to do with, I'm not going to say that you're born with it. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's a mindset where obstacles matter, but they don't. Like you got to solve them. You just keep working through it. And I would say that for me, it was developed when I was young, when I was a teenager.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. So I have like a tennis player or a golfer's body frame, but I played football. Okay. So as you can imagine, injuries, challenges, difficulties. But when you're young, when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, you, like a lot of young kids, you have dreams of gridiron glory. You're going to be on TV someday, right? You've got these dreams.
Who was your team you were
Well,
going to play
it ended
for?
up being like the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Because they were just so good. They were just...
the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Terry Bradshaw. That was great. But so you've got this dream and it won't go away. And then you've got this uphill, but you're pushing a rock up a hill. You're getting injured. You're getting setbacks. But for whatever reason, and I don't know the answer to this, honestly, because in anticipation of coming on your show, I was trying to think, why did I keep going? I have no idea. I don't know. I just kept going.
Yeah.
So then by the time I got to the work environment, I'm like, this is easy. No, it's really not, right? Work is hard.
Right.
But doing things that are physically difficult, where injury is a real possibility, where you're playing a collision sport where you can get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, going from that kind of a mindset into work, it wasn't a crazy hard transition for me. I just like, okay, this is the new thing. And I just need to, whatever it was, my first job was a sales job. So I just need to call a whole bunch of people. And if I call enough people, I'm going to get a bunch of yeses. And if I get a bunch of yeses, then things are going to be good for me. So, yeah.
Any sales job will build a lot of grit, but not as bad as getting hit out in the open field or breaking bones or any of those things.
There's another thing though at that time that I think is important. So my parents were first generation born here in the U.S. My mom's family from Lebanon, my dad's family from Germany and Ireland, and they were just poor. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I saw my parents scrap to get to the lower middle class in Buffalo, New York. And we ended up moving out of the city and into a suburb when I was like 13 years old, something like that. And it was an affluent suburb. So I saw how people lived. And then we didn't live like that. And I'm like, boy, I'd like to have that, right?
Sure.
Right? But I also saw this, and I think this is the important part. My father worked so hard, worked multiple jobs to keep his family going. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget how exhausted he was working the number of different jobs.
What kind of stuff did he do?
He worked on construction. He drove a UPS truck. He was a fireman,
Wow.
worked his way up to a fire chief. But yeah, he drove a liquor truck. He drove a taxi cab. He did whatever it took to keep his family going. And I saw that. And the other thing, and I think the media does some wonderful things for our country, obviously, but there's some disservice too. This thing that I keep hearing about, the American dream is gone. I don't buy that at all.
I don't either.
I don't buy that one bit. So one of the things that was like in the background when I was maybe in college, and maybe before that, was as an American, you can do better than the previous generation. So between that expectation and watching my parents and my father work as hard as they did, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to go out there and fight and see what I can come up with.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much. I still think these things today, but I can't really tell you how it's contributed. I just know that, I see obstacles and I see, okay, can we go around it? Can we go under it? Can we blow through it? We're not going to stop. Let's figure out a way to solve the problem.
Or it's not going to get you down.
No.
You're just going to find a way around it, and it just is what it is. You're going to run into challenges, and that's what you have to do.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So you had a decent sized team. You also have a son who I've met that work with him in his business.
Yep.
How have you instilled grit, whether it be within your own family or within the organizations that you've had and led?
Well, so I've given some thought to this, and I don't necessarily know that you can instill grit. I don't know that to be the case or not the case, but I think that a person meets obstacles in their life, and then how that person chooses to deal with those obstacles, how many obstacles, how difficult they really are. There's lots of circumstances that go into it, but how they come out the other side, and then can they repeat that? I don't know that can be instilled as much as it can be lived.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that I was ever able to instill a grit mindset into either employees or my family, other than just live your life, respond to challenges, and see where it takes you.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah.
Any mentors that helped you along the way in your path?
Yeah, of course. The sales manager that I had at the large printing company that I worked for, he's passed away since 4 or 5 years ago. But he helped me quite a bit, coached me. But frankly, a lot of it was, started a business after 11 years working for another company. And I remember telling my wife at times, I'd say, man, I wish I had a boss. Just somebody please tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. And she would say to me something like, you could be working for somebody. So I don't want to hear you complain. So I've had mentors, and I've had people along the way, business associates, friends, there's a lot of ways that you can learn.
Yeah.
Books, executive groups. There's a lot of, I was in a Vistage group for a while.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways that you can draw on the knowledge of other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Based on, your background, successfully building Prism and not prison and exiting that and now investing, are there any stories of grit you've seen in others that you've invested in or pouring into along the way? Because I know you've invested in a lot of different organizations. Anything that stands out that you've seen amongst those that you're now mentoring and investing in that are becoming successful?
Well, let me give that some thought. What happens as an LP is, as a limited partner, you'll make an investment into a real estate transaction or an operating business, and you'll get quarterly reports. Occasionally, you'll get an opportunity for a CEO to respond and give a corporate update. But I haven't been that super close to the investments the operating teams of the investments that I've made. So I haven't really had too much of an opportunity to do that. The strategy that I've employed is to cast a kind of a broad net in a variety of different categories, of investment categories, and learn from my mistakes and then kind of narrow it down.
Yeah.
So I really haven't seen, I mean, there are a couple of stories of, software business that had services and software, and then they had a setback along the way. Then they kind of worked their way through it and got to the end and got to a nice exit. So, but I didn't get to see it up close, right? I just got to read the story.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So if you were to turn back the clock, are there things you would tell the younger Ray that was ready to not have a boss, that was ready to leave that printing company, any lessons learned you would share with yourself now that you're sitting back and looking back at the company you built and the time before that?
I've said this a lot of times because I don't spend a lot of time doing this. You don't get do-overs.
Yeah.
You just don't get do-overs.
Yeah.
I mean, I strive to be a better person. I'm always trying to be a better person, try to be more skilled, be just more human, more whatever, right? Just trying to be a good human being. But I would say, I started my business, started off, my adult life, and then ultimately my business career, just going, let me go out there and see what happens.
Yeah.
And let me give it my best shot and see where it can take me.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the thing I would say to somebody: just follow a dream, and see where it takes you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're wrapping up here on the Grit Mindset. Any final thoughts or words of wisdoms beyond what you've shared today that you could share with our audience, or any areas that you and I haven't covered that you think would be relevant to talk about?
Yeah, I think one of the possibly the most important thing, I've been blessed to have an amazing wife. Okay,
Yeah. She's a nice lady. I've met her a couple times.
She's a beautiful person. She's got an amazing moral compass. She is smart. She's beautiful. Oh, she's great. And she's been tremendously supportive in everything that I do. So there was a time when we did, in fact, get fired by one of our large customers. And it was also going into the weekend of like the 5th grade camp out I think it was for my daughter. And Susie said to me, she said, stop being so down about it. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. You'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We'll get to the other side. Go with your daughter and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
And like the stress just fell off of my shoulders. And I'm like, she's right. She's right. Just go and enjoy yourself. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. I mean, my wife, my family's just been amazing, an amazing support system. I just love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, thanks for being a friend. Thanks for inviting me along and mentoring me in the investing world. It's been a really interesting journey. I know there's a lot of us that lucky to have you as a friend and a mentor in that realm. So appreciate you coming on the Grit Mindset and sharing your story with our listeners. Thanks everyone for listening in and for this episode of the Grit Mindset. This is your host, Matt Rosen, signing off. Stay gritty out there.